now handing to Mr. Anush to introduce the next speaker for delivering the talk on introduction to simulation on photonic device fabrication. Mr. Anush.
Thanks, Kishore. So in this series, our next speaker is Mr. Abhishek Mal. So Abhishek did his undergraduate from Hansraj College, University of Delhi. After that, he joined Bombay as a MS Tech dual degree student. Presently, he is working in Laboratory of Optics and Materials, Department of Physics, IIT Bombay, under Professor Ansuman. So Abhishek is going to deliver the talk on introduction to photonics modeling. Abhishek, please can you share your screen and start the talk? Abhishek.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Anuj. I will.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Please
I will share my screen.
Okay.
Yeah. Everyone can hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Abhishek Mal. I'm final year master student working in Laboratory of Quantum Optics of Quantum Materials, Department of Physics, IITB. So today I will be discussing about modeling in nanophotonics, which is majorly the discussion over what are the tools which we use while understanding the nanophotonic devices before going for the fabrication process. So here I will start my discussion with this outline where I will include few introduction about the light modulation techniques, which will discuss how we can modulate the light over by using different kind of materials and nanopatterning on the structures, which will include discussion over metamaterials and meta surfaces. Then I will move to simulation methods, which will include why simulation is important and what are the types of methods which have been introduced up till now and how effective they are, and while doing some theoretical analysis which kind of method we can choose. Then I will discuss a simple example of one of the modeling methods and then move to a new modeling approach. Then at the end I will discuss about my work which and the simulation methods I've been using. So let's start. So light modulation is a very intriguing phenomena where you try to modulate the intensity or state of polarization, amplitude or phase of the light. So these are mainly achieved by using materials called metamaterials or meta surfaces, which are materials with artificial properties. So these artificial properties arises due to the structure of the material rather than the intrinsic property. So mostly it arises because of the topology, the way you tailor these dimensions, which could be in subwavelength scales. So for a visible range that could be around few of hundreds of nanometers. So here for as an example, we have polarization detection. So meta surfaces are used as a sandwich structure where metal dielectric metal is used for polarization detection. For a normal incident can be separated into different state of polarization. Then moving on, we can also have meta surfaces and metamaterials used for beam splitting also, where an incident light could be used to split the beam into the different polarization states by introducing some phase difference between both the orthogonal components of the incident light. Then we can also have some phase and amplitude control together, where we try to pattern small structures in different orientations. These orientations introduce a phase gradient into the reflected beam light, and these phase gradient can be designed according to the orientation and the size of the nano antenna. So here in the left bottom image you can see the silicon patterning, where the orientation and thickness introduce a different kind of phases into the incident beam, and then in the reflected form we find a optical vortex with the intensity varying from center to the edge of the vortex. Then again we also have different sizes of these nanostructures. Instead of having just rectangles, you can have meta atoms or meta molecules, where you can have two structures or three structures in a single unit cell. So these also changing the dimension in a single unit also introduces some kind of phase and amplitude modulation into the reflected beam, which can be used for vortex beam splitting polarization detection at the same time. Then also meta surfaces have been used for enhancing the efficiency of other devices, which could be based on photodetectors or modulations of the signals in optical fibers or holographic imaging. So in all the three cases, we have different type of interaction of meta surface with different devices. In the first case, meta surface patterning, which is snowflake like structure, which introduces and couples with the graphene layer, and introduce a strong plasmonic coupling, which increases the response of the graphene absorption response of the graphene. Secondly, then we have the signal modulation, where you can have a meta surface patterning, which can control the propagation of light in either of the direction. So in this optical fiber, you can have NOR gate and gate functionalities by absorption, reflection, or full transmission of the light in either of the directions. And then we have holographic imaging, where you pattern different antennas at a flake, where all those antenna dimension introduces a phase, and those phases uh, constructively interfere or destructively to give rise to an imaging pattern. So these kind of applications makes it intriguing to know how the light is interacting with the matter at subwavelength scale. And to understand these kind of interaction without directly going to the fabrication, we need to understand the working principles of electromagnetic interactions at these levels. So here comes the simulation part, where we try to model those systems and try to see what kind of understanding we can take out before going into the fabrication. So what a typical definition of simulation is: designing a model of the real system to understand the behavior and evaluate the system basis of the response or the desired which we want from our desired system. So these could be narrowed down into simple points of understanding the bottleneck of the problem, where you could have a device where you want to push its limits to a better efficiency, or you want to have a device where you want to see its responses to different configuration changes. That could be some thermal changes, pressure changes. You want to measure the device under different environmental conditions, or you can have some dynamical changes, where the external components could be the gate voltages and the temperature and doping levels, which you change drastically into the system, and how you want to see how these changes are affecting the response of the system. And then you can also have the situation where you want to find the equilibrium state of the system, where you would have the optimum responses with the highest efficiency, or the highest coupling, or any of those functionality which you want at a very without any disturbance from the external environment. So all these narrow down to one important point, is that design and analysis of these fabricatable systems before you need to do all these bottleneck responses thing. So when we in the meta surfaces and meta materials for these designs and analysis, what we do is we do the optimization of the device. And these optimizations are mostly related to the topology optimization, where you try to optimize the size dimensions of the device and try to see how the response of the device changes by tailoring them. So while doing this, we try to adapt some modeling methods in these nanophotonic systems, which are typically based on solving these four Maxwell's equations. So what we do is we try to solve in different scenarios these different equations and try to see how the system is responding. So the first method is finite element method, where what it does is it divides the whole system into the small elements, and these elements are uh, uh, are used to calculate the response of the system at the level where you have approximation very closer to the accurate responses. So it can be done in a way that, suppose you are solving for the bottom two Maxwell's equations. So this finite element method, what it does is, for a particular element, it solves the Maxwell's equation at two nodal points and try to see the approximations and at those points. But the good point here is that the smaller the element size is, that the better the approximation, but it increases the computational time drastically. So we have to be very careful about choosing these elements while performing these simulation and solving the Maxwell's equations. Then the next method is using finite difference time domain method, where you only solve for the bottom two Maxwell's equations. Why we try to solve here these curl equation is because we want to see the progress of the solutions of our Maxwell's equation in time domain as well as in the space domain. So what we do is we perform the discretizations of the time and as well as the space. So a simplest example would be a one dimension device where you want to solve the Maxwell's equation, where you have suppose a z component polarization incident, and then the curl equation turns out to be in these two simpler equations. And when you solve these equations in the discretization format, you end up with these space and time discretization, where delta x and delta t are the discrete elements in the space and time, and the m and q are the units of those elements, which completes the whole system. So while solving these finite difference time domain equations, the algorithm works in a way that you know a previous solution, then the next solution is computed on the basis of the previous solution, and this cycle repeats till all the solutions are evaluated. Then we have another kind of modeling systems which uses evolutionary algorithms and genetic algorithms, where you try to minimize the function. The function is the combinations of some desired functionality, where you could have phases and the amplitude. Now minimizing a function means that you are trying to find the optimal minima or maxima for that function, such that while tailoring the parameters p of the geometry, you get the highest response of the phase or the amplitude by minimizing those functions. These algorithms are very helpful while you have large parameter space for a specific geometry, but when you want to transition to different geometrical designs, these evolutionary algorithm get iteratively expensive. Also, you need to have a previous knowledge about what is the nature of your functionality or the target response. Here we are talking about the phase and the amplitude, that for a certain situation you could have an amplitude of unit, or you want an amplitude which should be varying as a Gaussian. So knowing these previous knowledge, you need to choose precisely those minimizing functions so that you get the optimal parameters. So those are evolutionary and genetic algorithms which can come in handy while optimizing for a particular geometry. But moving on, recently a focus has been transitioned towards the deep learning methods, where we use deep learning neural networks to learn these mm, uh, Maxwell's mapping or solutions between topology and the response, so that we have the desired geometrical designs for the particular desired responses. So how this works is that in the same way the finite element, finite domain, or evolutionary methods work, they try to go from geometric space to the response space, where you try to optimize geometry, run the simulations iteratively, and get the desired optical response. And you tailor to the point such that you get the most efficient response you desire. But in the deep learning, you do it the different way. Here you try to give the desired response, and the deep learning method will try to find those optimized parameters for you. So the one method is trying to use two concatenated networks, where there is a forward network and a reverse network. What forward network does is uses design parameters d and learns the mapping between design and response. So this is a forward design which is to, totally followed in all FEM FDD evolutionary strategies. While in reverse design, what you do it, you want to give a response, a desired response, which could be anything, phase, amplitude, or the efficiency, and you want to get the desired geometry. So this happens is that you need a starting data set solution on which the machine learning algorithm learns and try to map that. And once the machine learning algorithm has learned efficiently, you give the desired responses and you get the predicted desired geometry. So the only difference here is that the only computational simulations which you use in the FEM FTD is used as a training data set for the deep learning methods. Now moving on for the FTDT and FEM packages, we have some softwares out there which uses these concepts we have numerical aptitude software packages and COMSOL multiphysics FEM. Both the packages works just differently on different methods of optimization, but the interface and the functionality is more or less the same. Only the background algorithm working is different. So it more or less you will get, if you get acquainted with one of those packages, it's easier to get acquainted with another one. So here I will start with discussing a simple example from the COMSOL multiphysics, how you set up a simulation, what are the steps important in those simulation processes. So it's here's a simple window of COMSOL multiphysics, where you will see there are different uh, panels in which you can choose different options for your simulation processes. The topmost panel is the add-ons, where you can add different kind of elements to your simulation process, which includes adding a material or the type of physics you want to solve. It could be solving for semiconductors or the plasma, or you can solve for the radio frequencies regimes also. And then you can also have some external after simulation nodes, where you can add the plots, or add export the results to see how the results have been due to your simulation processes. Now then you have a model setup also, where you set up all your model with the initial parameters, materials, geometry, and the physics defined. And then you get, after the running the simulation, you get the results. And then the third element is the model window, where you can observe your geometry, the meshing, and the output results. So here is an example. So in setting up a simulation, the first task is to set up the parameters and the variables required for your simulation processes. These could be defining the frequencies, the geometrical parameters, or unit cell size, these kind of constant parameter which you will be using in your simulation, or the variables, where you could have a situation where you want to define the material as a surface conductivity or a function of some electric field or magnetic field calculated. uh, and then you can have the geometry setup. Once you have set up the geometry, you could have different assumptions, where you could have PML layers at the top and bottom, semi-infinite substrate. You can define the meshing over the geometry, size of the geometries, and other things. And you can choose the scale of the geometry depending upon in what length scale you are working. Then you can define the materials. So the third step is materials, where you can choose the built-in materials, or you could have a situations where the materials itself have varying refractive indices, permittivity, depending upon the wavelength range you are working in. Some materials like silicon has varying refractive index in visible region. Some materials like hyperbolic materials have varying permittivity as a tensor. So you can do all those stuff while importing these materials or defining your own material. Then you have the meshing, which typically defines how your algorithm is going to work, at what points it's going to calculate, and how closer your approximation should be. So the smaller the size of these elements, the closer the approximations are, but the simulation times get exponentially increased due to these meshing. So the alternative method is you define the regions where you want to calculate the regions where the most important coupling or the interactions are happening, and with them you can increase the meshing high there, and at the other regions you can have a lower meshing, so as to compensate between the computational time. Then you can have setting up the physics study, where you can define different periodic conditions, scattering conditions, and define the ports, where you can define where is the source and the uh, source and the detector, where you calculate all the fields. And then different wave electric equation, where you have perfect electrical conductor situation, or different domains, where you can define different physics also. So then the comes up the final step of running the simulation and analyzing the result. So mostly there could be situation where you want to run for a particular frequency or ranges of frequency, and then you can analyze the result by looking at the field profiles and the corresponding reflection spectrums. So now, after doing all the simulation method, one thing which was understood, that with increasing complexity of the nanostructures, the simulation time increases. So deep learning has been introduced as the alternative for understanding the modeling of these nanophotonic structure for their topology and their corresponding responses. So if you have a simple single resonance device, then you could have simple analytical modeling, or then with increasing the complexity of the response, you increase the modeling setups, which goes from semi-analytical to FEM, FTDT methods. But when the complexity increases, where you have multiple materials, multiple topologies, or you want to find such topologies for that the desired responses are achievable but requires high complex simulations and solving of Maxwell's equation, then you can it gets very complicated to solve those equations. So here we introduce, people have been using the deep learning methods, and these deep learning methods have been successful in comparison to the FTT simulation, where you can see that a particular full wave simulation could take hours or days in some scenarios, but full trained machine learning model can generate the optical response and up a desired topology for a desired response in few seconds. So emphasizing on that, we have some recent works where people have introduced different machine learning models for desired input optical responses and uh, corresponding predictions of the geometries. Here we can see that the people the in this paper, the H-shaped geometry has been optimized, where the variables could be the length L0, L1, and phi angle, and omission of the length. So how this machine learning algorithm works is, you have a two fully connected concatenated networks, where there is a forward network which goes from geometry to responses, and there is an inverse network which goes from responses to the geometries. So what you do is, you first train your model on the simulations data set for the forward network, where it maps from topology to the responses, and then you have the inverse network which maps from the desired responses to the topology of the nano photonic devices. So it is very difficult to train the inverse design, because there are certain problems. The first one is the non-uniqueness, where you could have two designs or more than two designs for a particular desired optical response. So for those situations, the machine learning models becomes very hard to converge. So that's where we have the forward design models which guides the reverse model to a particular solution. So that's why it bypasses the problem of non-uniqueness. So in the plots, you can see that after the full training, if you give in a desired response, the predicted response are quite closer, and the predicted geometry by the deep learning method is quite comparable when you do the fabrication and get the optical response. Very successful map these optical responses to the geometry to the optical responses uh, uh, functionalities. So this is for a particular geometry, where you already have a geometry in mind which you want to optimize. But suppose there could be scenarios where you want to generate new geometries for a desired optical response. So that's where the generative models have been used, where they understand the geometric space and the response space as a probabilistic distribution, and due to this probabilistic distribution, they generate new designs for a desired optical response. So in this example, you can see that the ground truth, which is the original design, was a star shape, and then the generated designs were a spherical shape, but the responses from both the designs are similar, which means that even if you have some complicated geometries and you have corresponding optical responses, these generative models can generate simple geometries which will have similar optical responses, and is a very good method to eradicate the fabrication limits, where you cannot generate, as discussed earlier, that the if the geometry gets complicated, it is very limiting to fabricate all those geometries. So moving towards that, after the optimization and the design, people have also used machine learning models for understanding the underlying physics also, where they have done a dipole resonance engineering, where you input the desired electric and magnetic dipole uh, resonance extension spectra, and you get the corresponding materials which can be used to get those desired optical responses. So instead of choosing those materials and the dimensions of those materials, you directly given the desired responses, and you get the desired topology, and then you can do the fabrication onward. So in a sense, while training on a simulation data, deep learning models are very successful in mapping those relations and understanding them as a full model of electromagnetic wave equations, and then giving us the topology for a desired uh, uh, electrical responses, which could be phase amplitude. In this case, we have electric dipole and magnetic dipole as extension spectra. So on that line, I've been also working on those kind of methods using deep learning for the optimization and inverse design. So here what we try to solve is that how we can have a single optimized machine learning model for optimizing multiple geometries at a single run. So what we do is, for the forward simulation, we generate a data set where we have different topologies which have corresponding responses, and then we train our deep learning model. So we train our deep learning model for mapping of forward responses and the inverse responses. So in the inverse response case, you could have one to many mapping where you could have a particular response, and then for those responses you could have different geometries. So what it does is, in our method, we train our network such that it searches for those geometries which have closest responses by searching into the geometric space library created by our forward network, which learns the mapping from topology to design. So in such a manner, it eradicates the need of training multiple models at the same time, as we have seen in the previous cases where you have a forward design deep learning model and the inverse design model. And also we eradicate the need of the issue of the convergence, where we, instead of uh, our machine learning model going to non-convergence, it searches for the closest designs such that in a error window we get the closest optimized design parameters. So in at the end, I would like to conclude with the discussion that there have been different developments in the methods of modeling to decrease the iterative iterative methods to optimize limits, so that we have less simulation time, but with the desired optical responses. But to further reduce that, people have also introduced and come up with deep learning approaches to replace these conventional approaches. And for the further future aspect, we can also have areas where we can in parallelly use these conventional approaches of FTDT, FEM, or evolutionary algorithm together with the deep learning approaches to get a better, less time consuming, less iterative, and more precise modeling of nanophotonic designs. And that's where the gray region of deep learning and the conventional approach comes. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Abhishek. For giving a wonderful talk on modeling of photonics with methods and examples, and also with few new approaches. So now the session is open for question and answer. You can raise your hand, or so I will open your mic. Otherwise, you can send a message on chat to us also. So any question and answer, audience? Yeah, Abhishek, I have one question. How can we define random structures which are not available in the library?
Okay, so what happens is that when you train a machine learning model, so it learns the mapping from topology to responses and inverse design for response to topology. So if you have enough data set, so the only method to generate new design is using a generative method where it learns those distribution and try to generate new design. So to have those new designs, you should have a variability in the data set itself. So if you don't have that much variability, the machine learning model will try to converge to the known distribution which is it has learned in the design. So it will try to converge in the existing designs only. So to have new designs, you should have a variability in the data set itself.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question. What are the optical parameters you considered in your model to get a structure?
Uh, Optical parameters to in a machine learning model.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so in the machine learning model, the optical parameters you could choose. It could be anything. The phase also, reflections also, and the amplitude also. So these kind of responses you can choose, which can correspond to not just the topology of the nanophotonic designs, but also the materials used for the design. So as you have seen in the example of the engineering of dipole resonance, they not only optimizes the geometry but also the material for the desired optical response. So yeah, you can go either way. You can change the optical properties as resonance and the materials in the same way.
Okay, thank you. So one more question is there. So can we integrate scripts into the user interface? So I think yes.
Yeah.
So you
So
can explain better.
yeah, so in
Yeah.
FEM and FTTT, there are options to introduce scripts. So you need not to go through the conventional, just using the user interface. You can write your own script to do the iterative simulations, and you can define those methods to do
Okay.
the simulations.
One more question is there. Which software will be more effective in modeling 3D photonic crystals in terms of computational memory and time?
3D photonic crystal probably. So FTTT and FEM more or less are the same. So if you want to decrease the computational memory, I would go with the try to play around with the meshing of the depending upon the size of your photonic crystal. So I have seen papers with you using COMSOLs also. So you can decrease the computational time in that sense.
Okay, so one more question is, can you suggest any open access software for perovskite metal simulation?
Yeah, open access you can use Meep. So it is Meep and S4 are there. So you have to do the scripting. So they provide the packages for the material. So you can do the scripting on your own by defining the geometry and material. So Meep is an open source. S4 is also there. So you can use these softwares. So these are it's a scripting based software. So it can be done in simply in Python.
Okay. Thank you, Abhishek. I think no more questions are there. So thank you for the wonderful talk.